a good-looking pan. And any barmaid can be a star-maid if she dances with or without a fan. Hooray for Hollywood, where you're terrific if you're even good. Where anyone at all from Shirley Temple to Amy Semple is equally understood. Go out and try your luck, you may be Donald Duck. Hooray for Hollywood.
Ladies and gentlemen, coming to you live from an underground lair somewhere in the continental United States, here is the single greatest movie podcast in the world. It's Damn You, Hollywood. And here's your host. He has no use for all you no magiques and muggles, as it was pronounced. Ladies and gentlemen, the Grindelwald to my Dumbledore, it's Robert Winfree. Yay!
Mark, I respect you as a human being. You are a good father. I am better for knowing you, but I do not love you that way.
Unrequited love is the best kind of love.
And I was going to say, Mark, you do realize what you just said, right?
I sure did. I sure did, my love. That voice...
I couldn't let it sit. I just had to mention it. I had to say something about it.
That voice you hear, wondering what in the hell she just stepped into, is, of course, the girl who loves her corgi butts. Ladies and gentlemen, from Honeysuckle Rose Creations, it's Alexis Hejna. How do you do, madam?
Doing good. We did take a poll last time whether or not I am token girl or nuts about corgi butts, and corgi butts won.
Yeah, my wife said so that's what we're going with.
Hey, she controls 51% of the voting stock.
All right, Robert, we got things to do here, so take over.
All right. Hello, everyone. Once again, this is Damn You Hollywood. Tonight we are reviewing Fantastic Beasts: The Crimes of Grindelwald, or in other words, what happens when William Goldman dies and you can't get him to fix J.K. Rowling's screenplay. Sorry, Jeff brought that up to me when we did the Ground and Pound show on Sunday, and having now seen the movie, I can't help but think he was right. Before I get into the plot synopsis here, Alexis, I was happy to have you on the show. I'm curious what inspired you because you were last on, if memory serves, for our Infinity War review.
That's correct.
So what inspired you to come on and talk about the Harry Potter verse?
Well, actually, the first time I ever guested on one of Mark's shows, it was because they needed us a walking, talking Harry Potter encyclopedia. This was actually when you... Mark, correct me if I'm wrong. You were getting ready to review the first Fantastic Beasts movie. You were doing a look back at all the other Harry Potter movies.
Yes, we were doing Long Road to Ruin, the Harry Potter series.
Yes, and you and Sean Comer contacted me and said, hey, we need somebody who knows the books inside and out. Would you be happy to guest? And that was my first time working with you.
And she came back anyway.
Yeah, I know. I was warned. I didn't listen.
Neither did I.
None of us ever do. But yes, Harry Potter has been, for as long as I can remember, one of my all-time favorite fandoms. I've reread the books more times than I can count. I've seen the movies more times than I can count. I am begging my husband to take us to the Wizarding World of Harry Potter sometime in the near future because I really, really, really want to go.
It's fun. It's a lot of fun. There's actually a really good friend of my family's who works in Universal Studios. So when we went there last summer, we got to skip lines. He knew a bunch of the people. He knew when all the events were starting. And if you have to go, again, if you happen to know someone that works there, having that extra bit of access and insight is awesome.
Interesting side note, we might be holding off our trip to Orlando because they announced today they are building a Nintendo theme park adjacent to Universal Studios.
So my son, who I love now more than ever because he told me tonight that he really liked Rocky IV and can't wait for the next one. By the way, I meant to start the show off with this bit, but I was too busy doing the Ed McMahon thing. So, quick sidebar. Winfree, I'm winning at life, and I'll tell you why. I'll just kind of move past me having to ask you to ask me. I'm winning at life. Here's why. One, there was a Dominic the Donkey mention on Family Guy. full song and all. Peter was singing it. I nearly died laughing. It was the highlight of my life. So,
Family Guy was canceled 18 years ago, and you know it.
No, it wasn't. There was a Dominic the Donkey mention on national television on 9 o'clock on a Sunday night. Now, all these people who've told me they've never heard of Dominic the Donkey will have seen that, and I don't have to keep having this conversation anymore.
I didn't see it.
You know it exists. I've played it for you. The second thing is I have been waiting almost 8 years since my daughter was born to sit with the fruit of my loins and watch Rocky IV, and tonight it happened, and I could not be happier, I could not be prouder. Both of my kids enjoyed Rocky IV. They were cheering for Rocky on the couch as he was barreling into Ivan Drago, and they said, when are we watching the next one? Problem is, they're 7 and 4, and I don't know which one to show them next. Probably 3, but outside of that, I'm not entirely sure they're appropriate for any of the, age appropriate for any of the movies.
They would probably dig 3. 3 is my dad's favorite, and I was introduced to them. I was a little older than your daughter at the time, but not too much. So I'd go with 3, and then just let them know this one actually comes before 4.
Yeah, and I kind of went over that with...
Then you make them watch 5.
Well, the most depressing one?
I was going to say, nobody should force their children to watch Rocky V. You end up in prison for shit like that.
Mark doesn't. He's done worse.
For the record, I second that vote. Show him Rocky 3. I think that is maybe not the most children-friendly, but I think it's got the most lighthearted aspects. The whole thing with him fighting Hulk Hogan and everything. I think the kids will probably get the most kicks out of that.
Yeah, I'm pretty sure my son, who was like shadowboxing on the couch as he was watching Rocky IV, will get a kick out of Rocky versus Hogan. Okay, back to the Crimes of Grindelwald and how he made me go to sleep.
I mean, it's not that hard to put you to sleep, but...
This is true.
In fairness, I don't sleep at the movies. If I'm spending my money, I am damn well not going to nap. But this movie, I didn't sleep. I didn't even get close, but I understood almost immediately why you did. So here's everyone's spoiler alert. I'm going to go through the entire plot. If you don't like it, here's your chance to get out before free. Okay, the Crimes of Grindelwald. Again, my friend, coincidentally, the same one who works in Hollywood, served a LDS mission in Germany, and one of his critiques of the movie was, it's kind of funny that Jude Law's the only one who pronounces Grindelwald correctly throughout the entire movie.
That was actually something that bugged me with Johnny Depp's casting. I'm not going to go into the whole controversy about, should Depp have been removed as Grindelwald after the accusations of his ex-wife. But Grindelwald was a student of Durmstrang, which was an Eastern European school. My Cocker Spaniel agrees. And it was mostly filled with Eastern European students. So I was sitting there going, shouldn't Grindelwald have a different accent?
I mean, Mads Mikkelsen is right there, people. Come on.
Ooh, that would have been a good choice. Yes, Toby, you've gotten your voice on the show. Congratulations, but shut up.
The Radulich and Broadcasting Network, home to opinions of dogs and humans alike.
And to be fair, people come for the dogs. Anyway, Grindelwald our opening sequence is him being his transfer of custody from his prison in the United States after he was captured at the end of the original Fantastic Beasts and Where to Find Them. He escapes because there's not a movie if he doesn't. We then jump forward 3 months where we are reintroduced to Newt Scamander. The poor man under house arrest. He can't travel after the incident in New York because he's just too much of a liability to governments everywhere. And he's going stir crazy, and he's petitioning the Ministry of Magic to restore his passport, essentially. But they're less than enthused because, again, he is a giant international incident already, and will probably cause more in the future. He's just one of those guys. He's not malicious, but stuff happens around him. We meet his brother. We meet his brother's fiance, who also kind of has unrequited feelings for him because what this movie was lacking really, at the end of the day, was a love story to flesh out its 2-hour runtime. So we're introduced to her, Lita Lestrange, who is... if you actually get into the lore and the world of Harry Potter, how all the pureblood families are interrelated, I believe this is Bellatrix's aunt or great aunt. I can't remember specifically. I forget the family tree off the top of my head, so forgive me.
Honestly, I can't even remember exactly how they're connected. And frankly, I was really hoping this movie was going to set that up a little bit more.
The stuff they chose to set up in this movie was so odd. Of all the stuff they could have used to like foreshadow and set up the future, like no, Nagini is suddenly a person under a curse. Okay. Anyway, I'll get to that. Anyway, they give him an opportunity to have his travel rights restored if he joins the Ministry of Magic as an Auror. He objects on moral, philosophical, ethical grounds. He and his brother have had a bit of a strained relationship on occasion. He's being followed by the Ministry because it turns out that, the actual emotional climax of Fantastic Beasts and Where to Find Them, when a bunch of Aurors kill an out-of-control teenager because he's an out-of-control force of nature. No, they didn't actually kill him. I mean, just, destroy the actual, emotional ending to your previous movie. Good job, guys. He survived and is now looking for his parents because orphan. I mean, bear in mind, I joke about that because I understand orphan, wants to know where his parents are, trope, done, based in real life as well. Just seemed a bit ham-fisted. And he's in Paris, and they are worried about him because, again, he's an obscurial, and that means he's full of uncontrollable magical ability rather than the kind that you can actually wield appropriately, and he could be a bomb. Grindelwald's plan is to get him and use him as a bomb, specifically aimed at Albus Dumbledore. We are reintroduced to Queenie and Jacob, who are in London to get married, but because, and again, this movie needed a 2-hour runtime, so here comes the padding. Queenie and Jacob are having a disagreement about their actually getting married, because in America it is against the law for the magical and non-magical communities to link, because, again, we must always set up America as having some great dark secret, and if the magical community of America can elect a black woman president, there has to be something else for which they must be deeply ashamed for the next 300 years. In this instance, their treatment of the non-magical, or their relationship with the non-magical world.
Well, in all fairness, America always has been, I would say, behind the curve on acceptance when you actually compare it to other countries around the world. When people of color were accepted, when women were accepted, America was a few steps behind.
We have a large Puritan streak, about a mile wide, and Australian comedian Jim Jeffries did a whole bit on how there are 92 free countries in the world. We are one of the less free ones, based on what constitutes freedom. I
would challenge the legitimacy of that argument, and from a contemporary standpoint. From a historical one, no. Don't get me wrong. I'm not saying America is, free of controversy or sin by any stretch of the imagination. It's just
the example he gave is drugs and prostitution are legal elsewhere and not here, and he's not wrong.
He's kind of wrong, but
moving on.
Thank you.
Look, I'm not going to debate the political validity of a stand-up comedy bit. It's a stand-up comedy bit. I don't take them all
as
that
Jim Jeffrey
seriously,
said. You should not take him.
Disagree.
As Jim Jeffrey said, you should not take him seriously. This is not a TED Talk, and neither is this. So let's get on with the podcast.
Anyway. And they're in disagreement because Jacob does not want to put her in danger with them actually getting married. She enchants him to get married in England where such a thing is allowed, and then presumably would be grandfathered in under a desire to keep international peace. That whole thing did not make a whole lot of sense to me. Her plan was not well thought out, but this leads to her storming off to meet with her sister, who's in Paris tracking Credence, while he and Newt decide that, no, these are people we care about. We can't just let them storm off. We go after them. It's what we do.
Well, there's also You forgot Dumbledore meets him on a train.
I was getting to that.
But you also forgot the reason why Tina and Newt aren't speaking.
Oh yeah, bad reporting. That was hilarious. That was one of the funniest things to me when she pulled. Again, because there was hints at them keeping in contact and forming some kind of relationship. Apparently, when Newt's brother announced his engagement to Leta Lestrange, it was misreported in the American press as Newt being engaged to Leta Lestrange, and this, to a degree, broke Tina's heart. She started dating someone else. Newt didn't know what was going on because in some respects, he's oblivious.
Right, because of the Three's Company rule, nobody acts like they have any common sense, and actually calls anyone and, verifies things. And we just go with whatever misinformation we've got because yuck, yuck, yuck.
It's hearsay. It's good enough for me, damn it.
That's right.
God. Anyway, so there is that. Dumbledore encourages Newt to go to France and help throw a monkey wrench into the plans of Grindelwald. Turns out that Dumbledore was also at least partially, if not entirely, responsible for the events of the first film, because he's the author of all your pain, Gellert.
Suddenly Dumbledore is standing beside you. Sorry.
Newt, again, with all these forces coming to bear, Newt decides he's going to do this. He illegally travels to Paris. I'm going to jump around a bit because both the movie does, and this is a bit convoluted, so bear with me here, guys. Grindelwald is in Paris trying to set up another one of the convoluted villain plans where everything has to happen just right, but inevitably does because Hollywood. He wants to coax Credence into accepting his belief system and becoming part of his contingent willingly rather than through any sort of force. So he is trying to puppeteer things in that particular direction. We have Leta Lestrange's half-brother who's trying to kill Credence because there's a rumor and a lot of the elements of actions that are taken are predicated on the assumption that Credence is actually Leta's younger brother who was supposed to have died on, I think, the Titanic. Not a joke. They were literally crossing the ocean on a boat that sank, and while not a terribly uncommon occurrence, I tend to think, you know what, yeah, they just didn't say it was the Titanic. And who was supposed to have died there, but now this kid reemerges, and there's a lot of thought that it's him. He is, again, the lost Lestrange. And this guy wants to kill him because he made an unbreakable vow with his dying father that he would exact vengeance on the Lestrange family. This is why you don't make, oh, God, that's such a weird thing. Sorry, I'll get to that later. Tina's looking for him because she actually kind of cares about him. And is also working at the behest of the Ministry of Magic from the American Ministry to just try and curtail the potential, again, explosion that is an Obscurus running free in the world. Now, he hooked up with the Carnival where he met Nagini, a human under a blood curse that will slowly over time force her to inevitably remain in the body of a snake, and presumably within the next, this is 1927, within the next 90 years, give or take, she will somehow hook up with Voldemort. Unless become his last Horcrux. Unless there's two Serpentine Naginis.
You know what? Rowling's written enough plot holes. Let's give her the benefit of the doubt that she's not going to fall into that one.
Well, the other side to this I'd like to argue is that maybe Nagini is a common snake name like Spot is for a dog.
Fair enough. Again, I joke about these ones, but I'm prepared to wait for the actual third movie in the trilogy. It's actually 5 movies, not a trilogy, but I'm prepared to wait for the next movie before casting too many stones at this particular plot point. They burn down the carnival they're at when they escape so he can meet an old half-elf woman who dropped him off at the orphanage in America all those years ago. She's killed by an Auror who's on screen for all of 5 minutes and then is revealed to be one of Grindelwald's acolytes, and he disappears, never to be heard from again. They arrive in... Newt and Jacob arrive in Paris. They start looking for Tina. They eventually find her. There's a bit with, again, the... What was that guy's name? Kama something? Yusuf Kama?
Yeah.
Thank you.
I had to look it up because, for the life of me, I could not understand a word he was saying when we saw the movie.
He's got an accent that it can be hard to understand.
I mentioned this to Mark while we were waiting to start. The first time I saw the first Fantastic Beasts movie, I had a little trouble with it because Eddie Redmayne, God love him, he's an amazing actor, but he was mumbling like crazy throughout the first movie. The second time I saw it, I was on a plane overseas. I was able to put on the subtitles. I was like, okay, good. Now I understand what the hell I was missing. This time, Redmayne is not mumbling as badly as he did, but sweet Jesus, this other guy was just horrible. And I'm sitting there going, I'm going to have to watch this again with subtitles again because I can't understand what the hell's going on.
I'm torn on Eddie because part of me has never forgiven him for that, armed robbery incident a few years ago that he was involved with.
What?
When he robbed Michael Keaton of that Oscar.
Da-da-da-da-da.
Stop.
I feel good about that. I am a proud human being. All right. They all wind up anyway. All these disparate threads kind of coalesce when it turns out that the Lestrange family tree, which in the case of the Wizarding World is a physical thing to document and to record the family, which is actually really cool. That's a really cool thing. I was not aware that was how they did that, or how it could be done. But they all meet at the Lestrange family crypt, where Lita confesses that no, he's not her lost brother Corvus, who she killed on the Titanic when Rose let go of Jack. There was clearly enough room on that for both of them. I don't know. She swapped babies because he was colicky and wouldn't shut up. And she just wanted him to be quiet for a few minutes, so she picked up, the lack of morals, even in a small child, to just take her crying brother, put him in a different baby's crib, pick up that baby, and walk out the door. I get it from an emotional standpoint, but that person has a screwed up moral compass.
Again, I think you could make the argument that it was in fact an accident, because I'm pretty sure at least one of my children are dingy enough to pick up the wrong baby.
Fair enough. And then anyway, so he had actually died in the Titanic, and this should have led to a moment where Credence realizes that no, my parents don't matter. Who I am matters. But much like Star Wars fans not able to accept that Rey's parents were nobodies who didn't matter, he can't accept that no, my parents must have been someone important because I am. No, you're not bound to their fate, buddy. You are who you are. As they've all come together and had these realizations, these bits of reuniting, we get a rally from Grindelwald and his supporters where he delivers a speech where Johnny Depp does a subdued Mussolini impression. Subduing Mussolini's kind of takes all the fun out of Mussolini, but the Aurors arrive to try and arrest Grindelwald. He manipulates a couple of his followers into attacking them, or at least making aggressive motions. The Aurors defend themselves. He then gets to point, police brutality. Go, tell the world, you cannot trust the authorities. His followers leave. He kills a bunch of Aurors with blue fire. We get some moments where decisions are made. Queenie decides to join him because she loves Jacob and wants to be in a freer society with him and can't stand the oppressive governmental regime. Credence goes with him because he knows who my parents are. And again, all despite the actual evidence of it doesn't really matter at this point in time, does it? Nicholas Flamel shows up to be the Wizard Ex Machina and stop fiend fire from spreading throughout all of Paris. To close, we then get a brief bit where I'm skipping over a lot that has to do with Dumbledore that I want to get to separately when we actually talk about the movie. But as things close, Newt and Dumbledore meet back up at Hogwarts. where he presents Dumbledore with a charm that he and Grindelwald had made that was a pact of non-aggression, a literal blood binding that stopped them from fighting each other. Because apparently Dumbledore is the only thing that dark wizards really fear, be that Grindelwald or Voldemort. And he is now potentially in a position to undo the enchantment that he made. Grindelwald gets with Credence and says, I know who your parents are, I know who your family is, you have a brother out there, your real name is Aurelius Dumbledore, and you're gonna kill your brother dead. Smash cut to credits after he blows up half a mountain, which was actually kind of cool, and set up for the inevitable sequel. Oh boy, this movie.
I really appreciate you going through the plot synopsis, because now at least I know what it was I missed.
You're welcome.
Yes.
This movie, again, my friend Tom, who's actually in town for Thanksgiving, and again, a friend of my brother's since high school. I've known him nearly as long. Great guy. Works out in Hollywood. He's a screenwriter. I mean, everyone out there is either a writer or an actor. He's doing the Hollywood thing. And to the unpaid intern listening to this, if you happen to see a screenplay by Tom Skidmore, give the man a break. Eh? Or if Tom happens to be listening to this because he does internships from time to time. Hi, Tom.
Stop stealing my stuff, Tom.
He mentioned that one of the things that he felt was off about... Not that was off, but he said, this felt like a screenplay adaptation of a 600-page novel that no one else had read. And after seeing it, I kind of thought he's right. You know, there's good and bad in this movie. I want to get to both. I really do. But I think one of the cruxes of the issue there is there's so much that they try to pack into this that seems to, I mean, the movies for Harry Potter, and I've said this before, they're pretty good on their own, some of them better than others, but for a lot of them, if you haven't read the books, there's stuff that either doesn't work or doesn't work quite as well as it should. And I feel like that's the reality that we exist in with this movie, except there's no book to go along with it. Anyway, Alexis, I suppose I'll let you have a start, because again, Mark slept through half of this and therefore gets only half the airtime.
Fair enough.
That is very fair.
Where would you like to start with this? Again, good, bad, or otherwise?
It's very hard for me to really comment on good or bad, because again, I am a huge Harry Potter nerd, and there were so many parts of the movie that I loved. There was so much fan service to fans of the books and the previous movies that I saw one of my best friends, and she's a huge Harry Potter nerd too, and we kept geeking out over various parts. When you see young Minerva McGonagall, we're like, oh my god, young McGonagall, that's so cool. But then you walk away going that you're realizing that as much as I love J.K. Rowling, she will always be one of my favorite writers. You know, but so much of this movie felt like fan fiction. There were so many parts that just like, really, J.K., that's where you're going with this? I mean, the whole thing about Albus Dumbledore's brother, which is bizarre. And
okay,
like,
can we just... I do want to, if you don't mind me dovetailing off of that, can we just agree that Grindelwald is lying through his teeth to that poor kid about this?
I'm actually... Someone brought this up on a board on Facebook saying, please tell me Grindelwald was lying. Like, so basically that movie was either 2 hours of a retcon or 2 hours of a practical joke. Great choices.
Well, no, I mean, here's my thing about that. I will accept, especially the way that they have set up Grindelwald, and I haven't praised Johnny Depp in anything approaching a legitimate fashion in several years, but I do have to give him credit here, because he does an acceptable version of Grindelwald, and I like that they set him up as a political actor, as a seducer, rather than Voldemort, who is intelligent and unbelievably powerful, but a lot of the appeal to being on his side is, well, we can't possibly beat you. By contrast, Grindelwald presents, wrapped up in all of his lunacy and murderousness, some legitimate points of view and some legitimate issues facing the wizarding world at that point in time. And I like that and I appreciate that. So him being a more founded in manipulation than outright power plays, I can accept that. I can even accept him playing a long con on this, this kid who he basically views as a remote detonated bomb.
You talk about the manipulation. It's actually funny because the one element of the story that I genuinely liked and thought was well done wasn't Credence. It was Queenie.
Yeah.
This woman, she loves a no-mage, a muggle. She wants to get married, and he says, no, not that I don't love you, but, you're doing something that's going to put us in jail. And this is something that I think, thousands of couples could easily identify with. We think about just how long it took for gays to get married, for interracial couples to get married. You could have, less than 100 years ago, you could face jail time for marrying somebody of a different skin tone.
Yeah, I mean, that was what destroyed the professional reputation of Jack Johnson in the mid-20s, ironically enough, when he married a white woman and crossed state borders. He traveled between states with a white woman and was maligned and jailed for it.
Exactly.
Yeah, I was very sympathetic to Queenie's point of view because, and I liked how they handled it. She wasn't evil. She wasn't necessarily, coming from the standpoint of view of, I am, a mustache twirling do-batter, but more of, I want to be happy. I deserve to be happy, and if this guy's making legitimate points, and I'll benefit from them. So, she's willing to follow him. Like I like the fact that as much as they kept saying, and this is actually one of the problems I have with the writing of the movie, is the thing is called the Crimes of Grindelwald. He doesn't actually, other than escape prison, he doesn't actually do anything. His arguments are sound, and the opposition makes no opposing argument. It's just, we don't, their only argument is, things have been, it's a very conservative place they're coming from. It's always been like this, it should continue to be like this, and this guy needs to be silenced.
Well, I don't know how sound his arguments actually are. There's a really good argument that the sound argument he's making is all a bunch of lies. He's manipulating. He goes after Queenie, and actually this is the part thing I think he's so brilliant. I believe he purposely went after Queenie because she is oh God, I can never pronounce this. Legimus? She's a mind reader.
Legimens.
Like a lamb?
Thank you.
Well, wasn't she even more powerful than that? Like, she doesn't just have to look in your eyes; she can genuinely just hear thoughts around her, which was more like receiving telepathy than just mind reading.
I would guess so. We briefly saw some of that in the Harry Potter books. That Snape was very talented at this, but he couldn't just hear people.
Well, Snape could block it. It was Voldemort who could do it.
Well, actually, no. If you remember, I'm sorry. Have either of you guys read the books?
Oh yeah.
Nope.
Do you remember in the 6th book when Draco crashes Slughorn's party, and Snape brings him out and talks to him, and Draco just kind of glares at him. And Snape goes, "Oh, Auntie Bellatrix has been teaching you occlument." I can't pronounce these damn spells.
Occlumency.
Thank you. So I always got the idea that Snape was pretty good at doing that too, and reading minds as well.
I mean, he wasn't. There's a reason that when Dumbledore wanted Harry trained in it, he sent him to Snape because Snape was very good at, again, blocking. I mean, the man lied to Voldemort for ever, basically.
Yeah.
But no, I mean, that was one of the weird. I agree with you actually about him targeting her because she can hear thoughts, and this seems to be a weakness in blind spot in Grindelwald, that he needs to make sure he genuinely knows what's going on in the heads of people around him, and she will now give him access to that.
Yeah, she's a powerful ally. There's actually a post on Twitter. I think it's from Todd in the Shadows. Great YouTube show. But he talked about seeing the movie, and he said, what was it? He said that he wasn't a huge fan of it, but he said it truly captured what it's like to watch a loved one fall to a cause that you know is wrong.
I want to go back to something you said. When he's at the very end of the movie, and this is what I'm mostly drawing from, when he's at the rally and he's talking about, I don't hate I love the way he pronounces this, Muggles. Everybody in the fucking 6 films pronounces it Muggles. Muggles. All right. So the Muggles.
Look, it's how Captain Jack would pronounce it. It's how Johnny's going to pronounce it no matter what.
Right. So the Magiques.
That's so weird because it sounds like he's trying to ape the accents of the various people, of the various cultures and their terminology for the non-magical people. But since he can't actually decide what accent he's using for Grindelwald, it all just kind of falls apart.
So it's basically Captain Jack drunk.
Yes.
A little bit.
I mean, I understand what you're saying, Alexis, about, he's lying, but just because you're lying doesn't mean you're not making a point. Whether or not he believes his own point or he's saying these things for an ulterior motive, when he's talking, essentially what he's proposing is that this is the same story of the mutants in The Gifted specifically, but Marvel Comics. We should not live in the shadows. We should live open. We should live freely. We should have choices. We talked a little bit about this when we talked about the Chilling Adventures of Sabrina. A lot of the Satanist concepts. Again, we should live freely. We should have choices. We should we should not live in such a conservative, hidden society. That's more what I'm referring to. Now, if he's got something else going on there, and that those beliefs serve a greater purpose, that's all well and good. But again, if you just take what I said at face value, that's an appealing philosophy for a lot of people.
Yeah, and it doesn't hurt that he's able to, look a bit into the future and predict World War II still very closely on the heels of World War I.
Oh, I laughed my ass off when I saw that. My wife and I both looked at each other, and when we saw the clips of World War II, we both looked at each other and started laughing hysterically.
Yeah, I was just kind of sitting there going, okay, he's not technically wrong, but the skull thing lets him show images.
Yeah, there needed to be some explanation of what the magic bong was doing there. My favorite reaction to that, because everyone else kind of freaks out given that their general lack of knowledge about how humanity exists absent magic, but you've also got Jacob there who looks at this and it was established he served in World War I seem to recall.
It was.
And he looks at this with the kind of horror that actually led to the appeasement movement that gave Hitler so many opportunities to rise to power, and just goes, oh dear God, not another war.
Right. I know you guys were in the middle of going back and forth on something, but I just, I wanted to put it out there that on the one hand, I saw where Queenie was coming from, and then she's about the only character I had, any kind of sympathy towards, and really got her point of view, and saw how she could be seduced by the dark side of the Force. But the other hand, structurally, I really had a lot of problems with the film not addressing any of those things. It's essentially, it's like I said before. The Ministry of Magic is just, he's a radical and we don't like the philosophy and he just needs to be shut down. Like, do you have an argument embedded in the film that opposes this thing, that gets the audience to see why the Ministry... Because the Ministry of Magic right now, if you just drop somebody in the middle... First of all, if you drop somebody in the middle of this film, boy, are they going to be lost. But if they've never seen the first Fantastic Beasts, you wouldn't know Johnny Depp's the bad guy necessarily. You might be convinced the Ministry of Magic are the bad guys because they don't...
I mean, absent that one scene where he has his followers murder an infant, but...
Well, absent that. And granted, it's a big...
It almost felt like they had that scene just because, crap, we need to make this guy more nefarious.
Well,
killing a kid will do that.
We need him to remind the audience that he's a bad guy because again, the Ministry of Magic doesn't show themselves to be good guys. They don't show themselves to have the moral argument, and he doesn't do anything wrong. And I laughed at the end of the movie again when they're walking into the rally and he goes, "It's not illegal to listen to him." And I'm like, hell yeah, goddamn right. Get out of there, you narcs. All right, I'm gonna go back to shutting up and letting you two discuss the movie. I just need to get that out there.
Honestly, I liked that Theseus took that point. Newt's brother. We're not gonna just arrest everyone for being here. It's not illegal to listen to the man talk. He's the criminal. He's the one we need to arrest. Sorry, what was that?
But they are given the order, pretty much, anyone there, kill them.
Yeah, and it's again, I'm glad that he didn't obey that particular order because...
Kind of goes to my point, though, about,
Oh, yeah.
they're not doing anything...
Was that vaguely racist that it's the Irish order who says, no, just kill them all? Just saying. Anyway...
And a few short days later, Becky Lynch will get a face full of blood and be the most famous and be the most popular wrestler in the WWE.
Yeah, sure. For whatever that's worth.
You mentioned the Irish. Go on. Keep going. Rush. Go. Yeah.
All right, let me think. Because, okay, let me go with this. I mean, again, this movie is over 2 hours. And it's still badly edited. There's a couple of different scenes that just watch the movie and you're like, oh, they had something else here. There was clearly another, exchange, another few minutes of scene, another bits of dialogue that they just cut out. I mean, this thing was edited like through a wood chipper. And I'm not sure, and I mean, I'm of the opinion that, the quality of the overall writing doesn't help that. It was, the bad editing doesn't... The writing isn't good enough to save itself from bad editing, although the question begs that, what writing is safe from bad editing. J.K. Rowling is a novelist, pretty clearly, more so than a screenwriter, because this doesn't read like a great screenplay. It doesn't play like a great screenplay. And, that's kind of the... I hate to say the long and the short of it, but that is, there's only so much work you can do as good actors with mediocre to bad material. I mean, the acting in all of this is good to great. Great might be a stretch, but it's all at least serviceable. Eddie Redmayne is a good actor, again, his robbery of Michael Keaton notwithstanding. He's good. He's, the guy who plays Jacob is still probably one of the best things about these movies.
Agreed.
So credit to him. Jude Law seems to kind of come into his own towards the end of the movie as Dumbledore. There's some oddness in the beginning, but as he gets going, he gets more and more comfortable with the role. This is, again, it's the first time in several movies that Johnny Depp hasn't straight been aping Jack Sparrow in a role, so I'll give him credit. It galls me to do so, but I will. I can't complain about the acting as such. It's all the material they're given and the way it's edited together. It's overlong. It's choppy. There's very little transition. One of my brothers said that and I agree with him. It feels like when this was written, Rowling writ a bunch of scenes that she wanted in the movie, and then had nothing to actually connect them and help them flow together into a coherent narrative.
I get what you're saying. My problem with the movie was that it's the same problem we're seeing with a lot of other films nowadays, unfortunately, and it's that they're more concerned with setting up for the future film than they are about actually telling a good story in the here and now. There were so many elements that I really wanted to see them establish more, go into more, and we got the tiniest taste of it. I'm like, okay, yeah, I enjoyed the taste, but you're telling me I gotta wait another 2 years before the next movie comes out? You just kind of like, oh, and by the way, there's this. And I feel like they were more concerned about where the story is going rather than where the story is.
Yeah, we talked about this before we got on the show tonight, Alexis and I, and one of the things I said is I feel like when we talk about Lord of the Rings or the original Star Wars movies, these were movies that can stand alone by themselves. There's enough story in each of these movies to adequately support a movie. None of them felt necessarily incomplete, though they were part of a story, a larger story, especially in the case of like Lord of the Rings being the best example. Any one of those movies could stand on its own, but they are in large part 1/3 a piece of a grand story.
And they do a good job about teasing for the future movies without it becoming the focus.
Right.
You want to see more, not because you feel you need to, but because you want to.
As opposed to what happened with The Hunger Games and Twilight, which is they didn't have enough story for 2 movies. And so neither one of those movies really stand on their own, and it ends up being a lot of padding and just a lot of like you're watching. In some cases, you're watching just elongated action sequences. But not. There's really no story here, and that was my problem with this one, where it felt like there's this long series of exposition, one action sequence, and a reveal, and the movie ends, and you're like, huzzah! He's a Dumbledore. Come back in 2 years and we'll do it all again. And it's like, what? The last 2 hours, nothing happened. There's no story here. It's exposition.
Yeah, can we figure out at what point the Fantastic Beasts movies became just the Dumbledore prequels?
For what it's worth, the appearances of the actual beasts themselves, I thought were part of some of the highlights of the movie.
Oh yeah, when he's chasing the Zoa and he distracts it with a little with a cat toy.
Oh, my god, the way its eyes light up when it brings the toys out, I'm like, I'm dead. I'm just dead. I'm done. Oh my god.
Or after he lets it go and then he rides it out of the Ministry of Magic and then it's like, oh, you're my friend now, human. Come here.
That's the best part of the movie when he's initially fighting the cat the cat monster in the street. Yeah, I'm gonna go with cat monster. Fight me. When he's initially fighting with the cat monster in the street, and he lures it with a shiny object, I'm like, yeah, this is the best part of the movie. And then there's a long stretch of nothing. Granted, some of it I slept through. And when I woke up,
you really didn't miss a whole lot.
And when I woke.
The baby nifflers, the kelpie. The scene with the kelpie was cool.
The kelpie was pretty cool.
My wife so hard complained about that though. Like as cool as it was, she was like, and like I'm asking her what I missed in this thing. She's like, oh, at some point he rolled a kelp dragon, and I don't know what that was supposed to add to the film. And I'm like, and I could argue it does. It adds to his individual character. As somebody who cares for these things, and that's a big part of who he is. But where it related to the overall arc of the story, it doesn't really. Here's the other thing. And again, maybe it's something that I missed in the narrative, but I didn't see an arc for Scamander in this. He goes from
Queenie's the only one who gets an arc.
Well, that's
literally.
But here's my problem: they foisted one on him that doesn't really exist. Because at the beginning, here's the beginning and here's the end for Scamander. I'm not taking a side. I'm taking a side. And the middle is missing. That would make him change from one to the other. He just does because the plot said so.
There is some truth to that. I mean, when he watches the Grindelwald call his followers, he doesn't even have as much of a well, you could argue Lita supposedly died, and I am using finger quotes on supposedly because I'm hearing a lot of talk of we didn't actually really see her die the way we saw the others die in the Fiend Fire. There's a chance she apparated. She could come back.
I could have sworn I saw someone grab her and apparate as she was starting to be consumed by it. But the point needs to be made more clearly either way, that either she is dead or she isn't. But even if he just... And in fairness, even if the audience knows she's not dead, if he thinks she's dead, that can be enough. But it needed to be made... That needed to be a much better point being made from his perspective. I mean, his brother being torn up about it was, made all the sense in the world. This being the deciding moment for him to, plant his flag in the ground and go, no, I'm on this side of things. It just needed to be better fleshed out. It needed to be more earned. And in fairness, Grindelwald, trying to set off the equivalent of a napalm bomb in the middle of Paris is the kind of thing that might push you to that. But the fact that even that didn't feel right for him to arrive at that conclusion says something about the structure of the film. Let me see. Okay, was there anything else? I think I can't remember if I had something else. So, Mark, any final thoughts you wanted to kick over here? Then we'll give Alexis same shot.
No, go right to Alexis.
Okay, Alexis, any final thoughts? Again, positive, negative, things you liked, things you didn't, anything that we maybe didn't touch on that you wanted to shout out? I mean, personally, I got a kick out of watching Grindelwald carry around the Master Wand because we know that winds up with Dumbledore. So to see them maintain that continuity was nice.
That was a really nice touch, seeing him use that in the escape, in the opening scene. I thought that was kind of neat. Like I said, there were parts of the movie I did like. I loved the beasts. I loved, the actual fantastic beasts. I thought they were cool. I loved Queenie's arc. But there's so much I really want to see more. I mean, you mentioned Nagini. When I found out she was going to be in the movie and that we were going to see, it's like, oh my God, the origins of the final Horcrux. How cool is that? She does nothing.
Turns out she has like 2 lines of dialogue and just pals around with Credence.
Although I am calling it that dress is going to be one of the bigger cosplays of 2019.
Almost certainly. To be fair, so will Grindelwald. He had a really nice outfit.
But again, I feel that they were doing too much teasing and not giving us enough substance for this movie. Yes, I am interested to see where the story goes. I want to follow more about these characters. I want to know how this leads up to that great duel between Dumbledore and Grindelwald, because Rowling has confirmed that is the climax for these 5 movies. I am still intrigued. I just really wish they'd given us more to chew on.
So just because it's a part of the movie, and it just feels like it needs to be said out loud, especially for those that don't necessarily know the sort of the inside track on this. We can assume it was pretty apparent that the reason why Dumbledore and Grindelwald can't fight each other and made the blood pact is because they were lovers in a land before time.
Yeah, that was confirmed by Rowling. Dumbledore made a tacit admission to it when he was questioned about it. He said, "You guys were like brothers," and he said, "No, we were closer than brothers." But again, you can't come out as gay to the Irish.
Rowling actually, I believe if I'm wrong, someone correct me here, but I believe she confirmed that Grindelwald never actually really loved Dumbledore, but Dumbledore was in love with Grindelwald. So it wasn't like we were more than brothers. No, not to Grindelwald, you weren't. So I don't think they were exactly lovers. I just think Dumbledore was too far gone in love.
I only like you.
That's blind you to things.
I only like you as a friend. You're breaking my heart, Grindelwald. Oh, you non-magique, you mogul. Sorry. I am bombing tonight. All my little stupid jokes and everything. Not getting a single laugh out of Alexis. I feel very... damn it, Alexis.
Sorry, I've been trying to keep the dogs from barking again.
You're amusing to the dogs, at least, Mark.
Well, for the record, your idea that Grindelwald was lying about Credence being a lost Dumbledore, I've actually been looking at the dates listed on when Dumbledore's parents died. Again, either they're doing a serious retcon or he has to be lying.
There's no 2 ways around that. There is absolutely no way that both Albus and Aberforth would just completely lie about that through the entire other 7 books. It wouldn't happen.
Well, especially when you compare the age of Credence in the movie. This takes place in 1927, correct?
That is correct.
Dumbledore's mother, Kendra, died, according to the Pottermore and the Wiki, she died in 1899. So, and her husband was in Azkaban during that time period.
Yeah, and again, wizards living longer potentially or whatnot. As an aside, I mean, the kid could not have been at that orphanage for that long. He was a teenager in the original, and this is set only at most a year later, at absolute most. But you don't get to be in an orphanage for 30 years.
So let me ask you guys a question. Given how this is getting poor reviews, and we'll get to that in a little bit, on across the Rotten Tomato reviewers, I think it's doing okay money-wise.
It will. They've already made their budget, so I mean, again, they need more still, but they're going to be fine.
The reviews didn't stop Venom. Why should it stop this?
True.
We'll get there. I guess
I hate Venom.
I
hate Venom because it means we get like 4 more of these before the combination of the market and the people involved realize their catastrophic mistake. It's not going to be one.
So
it's
we're
not just going to be one more that bombs.
So we're talking about
There's going to be one that does okay, another one that bombs, and then another one that bombs, and then everyone will go, "Oh wait, you did this, Venom. You did this to us. I will not forgive you."
So we're talking about Fantastic Beasts, and my question to you for the third time, Alexis, is, do you think this continues to maintain its audience? And I mean, look, it'll always maintain the hardcore Harry Potter fans. Like you folks who are, quoting stuff out of the books and whatever, you guys are going back, you're going to finish this thing off. It's like Marvel movies. The base will always be there. But for this thing to be successful, it has to have that casual audience that took the Harry Potter films to $1 billion. And my question to you is, after this abysmal showing, do you think it maintains that casual audience with the third go-round?
Honestly, I'm not sure. Part of the appeal of the first movie, even though if you weren't a huge Harry Potter fan, getting to see the different beasts and the expansion of the Muggle or the Magic universe was such an appeal to it. We really didn't get that in this one. Again, the few beasts we saw were awesome, but we didn't really get the expansion of the magic world like previously. They're going to do a third movie, obviously. This one is going to make enough money. I have no qualms about that. But they are really going to have to, for lack of better terms, do something. Again, they cannot do just another movie of exposition and setup. We have got to see something with some real consequences.
So there's I think there's a comparison to be made to Lucasfilms, where, The Last Jedi comes out, the director opts to do some very weird and interesting things for the Star Wars universe with the film, and in doing so angers almost every single Star Wars fan out there, to the point that to whether there's a direct correlation or not, I'm not going to get into that argument, but some would say there is a direct correlation, that the next Lucasfilm project bombs, which is Solo, and bombs hard, to where Lucasfilms then cancels everything but what was ever coming out on television. They're leaving the television projects alone, but all the other movies that were slated canceled, and they're viewing Episode 9 as a quote-unquote course correction. I think it needs to be said that the folks over at Warner Brothers have already lost their shirt on the DC universe. They can't afford to see the Wizarding World go under too. So do you think the next movie is a Lucasfilm level course correction to where they're going to go overboard with the action and there's going to be no exposition whatsoever, and it's just going to be one scene of fan service after the other, which is apparently where we're going with Star Wars.
It's where Star Wars already existed.
I was talking to Alexis. I already know what your opinion is.
I hate that. I think there's a pretty good chance that could happen, but I am intrigued to see whether or not Harry Potter fans will follow the same trends as the Star Wars fans, demanding blood, going insane, harassing the actors on Instagram and Twitter and such, and just turning into annoying little shitheads. I've never gotten that impression out of Harry Potter fans before, and I'm sitting going, so are we going to see if Harry Potter fans are better than Star Wars fans? Can Harry Potter fans maintain their cool? Do Harry Potter fans look for more of the positives and ignore the negatives? And I think this is going to be an interesting time period to see if that happens.
I think here's the difference.
If I may.
No, hang on. Hold that thought, and then the floor is yours, and then we'll move on to the money. I think there's a big difference here, personally. I don't think this offended Harry Potter fans. I just think this was, kind of an underwhelming hand job. It's like, it was all right. Nothing to speak of. It's, a lot of people leaving the theater going, long sighs. Where that last Star Wars film, angered Star Wars fans. It was insulting to them. Now, I'm on record as saying I loved it. I thought it was great, but I'm not a huge baby that wanted Luke Skywalker to take down the Empire all by himself with a as he puts it, a laser sword. I was just wanting a good story, which is what we got. But I think with this one, I don't think anyone was, and then this is more of a question to you. Was this offensive in any way? The way Star Wars, the way the Last Jedi was. This wasn't provocative. It was just boring.
There's definitely some truth to that. It wasn't offensive, but again, fans can take offense if they feel like what they know and love in their hearts has been attacked. If Rowling is serious, if Grindelwald isn't lying, if this is a serious retcon and rewrite, the fans can legit get really pissy about that.
Is it too soon to tell if there's Twitter fire out there, or have you been hearing stuff, or not so much?
The only thing that's been coming across lately is a tweet that Rowling sent out basically asking fans not to reveal the ending, and so far actually that's been pretty good. I've seen very few sites and such that have revealed, or if they have, they say caution, spoilers below. So people seem to be doing pretty good about that, but again, it comes down to, will Harry Potter fans act the same way as Star Wars fans? Mm-hmm. And I guess we're just going to have to tell them in the upcoming month or so, when the movie gets a little bit more steam and more people have seen it and can discuss it openly.
Okay, the floor is yours, Winfree, and then we'll do the money.
I was just going to say essentially what you said. We're dealing with a couple of different things here. Star Wars fans have put up with, prior to The Last Jedi, so the preceding 7 movies, there's one good one. They'd already gotten used to bad movies. And the reaction to The Last Jedi was less about the quality of the film, because it is up there with, in terms of actual film quality, setting aside fandoms, mind you, just the film. And look, I'm prepared to accept a wide variety of perspectives on the film based on your fandom. I know people who take serious issue with it. Some of those positions are reasonable, some of them are not. If you have a reasonable disagreement with the film, I'm more than happy to listen to it and accept that we have different experiences. But most of the Star Wars films are not good movies. They're just kind of fun to watch. Then comes The Last Jedi, which deliberately takes apart. I can't believe they didn't see this coming. This is one of those things that in hindsight seems so clear. Rian Johnson did a beautiful deconstruction of Star Wars. And personally, I loved it. But when you deconstruct other genres, take Austin Powers, for example, as a comedic, mind you, but still a deconstruction of James Bond films. James Bond had to go in a completely different direction with the Daniel Craig movies than they had gone previously, just because it kind of blew up the genre. Take Unforgiven. Clint Eastwood rather famously deconstructing the genre that made him famous in the spaghetti western, the gunslinger motif. None of those really have the same fan base, the same cult that Star Wars does for a fan base. And for him to just in an act like, and not even a parody. I mean, everyone laughs at Spaceballs because it's a parody, but in an actual Star Wars movie, for him to line by line deconstruct Star Wars, it caused the massive backlash. In this instance, I think we're just dealing with a movie that's not very good. And again, with respect to the ending, that I'm prepared to wait and see how that plays, and I think a lot of people are. Depending on which way they go from here, how it's handled, there could be some serious... They need to be prepared for serious backlash depending on how it's handled, though. For the moment, I think it's just a suboptimal movie, and in fairness to the Harry Potter movies, I mean, this might be the worst of the movies proper. I mean, there's a few that aren't good. But it's not that far off the mark in terms of overall quality from the other films in the franchise. So it's not a huge miss in terms of quality. Again, we just talked about the movie itself, but there's a lot of fun to be had watching it. I mean, there really is. Because, film quality doesn't preclude one's ability to enjoy watching it. It never has. And I think, again, we're just mostly going to be looking at the next one to see what happens with both the story and how the fan base reacts to it. Because it's based off of this, it's a lot of, again, setup and a lot of questions being raised, but a lot of questions that can be answered in satisfactory ways and handled in satisfactory methodologies. But they do have to be handled that way, and I think part of what the Harry Potter fan base has on the Star Wars fan base in this instance is the patience to say, okay, let's see how this plays out, whereas Star Wars fans tend to be, look, I think Star Wars fans tend to be, look, we waited 30 years between Return of the Jedi and The Phantom Menace. We don't have time to be patient anymore. We could die before these things get going and get answered. Give us the answers we want now.
Well, I think it could be more simply said, the Star Wars fans have been burned so many times at this point we don't have a wick. It's just, whereas we've become a sensitive bunch because of the prequels, and then we have a writing of the ship with The Force Awakens, and then we're right back to your burning Star Wars fans.
Frankly, I'm shocked you all weren't insulted at The Force Awakens.
I liked Force Awakens.
For a lot of people, listen, you got to remember how badly the prequels affected people.
I know how badly they affected people. I saw all those when they came out. I saw them in theaters. I saw them with Star Wars fanatics.
But
I'm not one myself, but I know a bunch of them.
But to make the point, and so we can move on here since we've been at this for over an hour, I don't think Harry Potter fans have dealt with the level of being burned that Star Wars fans have. I mean, you guys had, 6, 7 movies. They were all good. 8 movies.
7 has 2 parts. 7 books, 8 movies.
Well, technically 9 now 10 if you include the 2 Fantastic Beasts movies.
Yeah,
That's true.
When I initially put that number out, I was only talking about the original Harry Potter movies. That set of movies, to varying degrees, were all successful. I mean, when we did Long Road to Ruin, there were some I thought worked better than others. Some I thought were just hot garbage. But I'm not talking about me.
I don't think there's any. I mean, to the point, I don't think there's any that are actually bad. Again, there are some that are problematic. Goblet of Fire springs instantly to mind.
Well, that's what I'm saying. I mean, I don't want to revisit Long Road to Ruin. I want to get to the point of saying I don't think anybody of the Harry Potter fandom walked away from any one of the original Harry Potter movies and was like, fuck Warner Brothers, burn the studio down. Because that was the reaction to the prequels. And so...
Especially the second. Especially the Clone Wars.
Especially the Clone Wars. So I think, here we are with... and then Fantastic Beasts was obviously did well enough, and people enjoyed it well enough that they decided to go on with the series. So we're really only experiencing the first time in the entire Harry Potter movie series, entire Wizarding World movie series, where fans will be like, what are you people doing up there? I mean, we're not even at DC levels yet. where it was like Man of Steel, Batman v Superman, what? And then and then Justice League, I give up.
I think there's also something to say to the fact that I feel that fans will be less likely to come forward and say they didn't like it because the screenplay was written by J.K. Rowling. And I don't know. I feel like I almost feel weird saying I didn't like parts of the movie because I don't want to insult J.K. Rowling. I don't want to.
I don't know. That didn't stop anybody from saying bad things about the Clone Wars, and that was Lucas.
Well,
Nothing but Lucas.
I don't want to make too many comparisons to J.K. Rowling and George Lucas. I don't know about the woman the way I know about George Lucas. George Lucas is a horrible robot who doesn't understand how people work. I can't say that. I don't know that about J.K. Rowling. From what I understand, she was a homeless woman, who wrote wizard books and became a billionaire. I don't really know much about her beyond that. So, you want to just 50 words or less weigh in here? Is she a horrible robot too? Just where are we with J.K. Rowling vis-a-vis George Lucas?
Which one of us are you asking?
You.
I mean, I can give you my 2 cents, and then let me go first. George Lucas is a badly programmed robot. J.K. Rowling is a novelist, not a screenwriter. That's about where I've landed on this with all the available evidence so far. Alexis, please feel free to correct me.
Well, like I said, it's just kind of hard to say anything that J.K. Rowling has put her hand on is bad. The fans, like myself, have just adored what she's given us for so long.
You know what you guys need? You guys need a Christmas special. Yeah. That's what you... Yeah, I got them back. All right.
Only because I looked up I tried to watch the Star Wars Christmas special on YouTube years ago, and I got like 3 minutes into it and went, no, this is the dumbest thing ever. Who in the world thought this was a good idea?
Yeah,
this is terrible.
If you're
why am I doing this? And I stopped.
Yeah, unless
I'm
you're
a sad person.
Unless you're doing a riff track on it or you're fucking high, there's no reason to watch that show.
No.
Even
kidding.
if you're high, like you could find better stuff to overdose to than that particular. Like if you're high, watch The Wizard of Oz.
All right. Again, I got a big laugh out of that. It's not getting any better for me. So so we're moving on. Here comes the money.
Here comes the money.
Here we go. Money talk.
Here comes the money. Money, money, money.
Dollar, dollar. Dollar, dollar.
I was recently asked by a coworker, why don't I get up and I'm funny, why don't I get into stand-up comedy? And this is a great example of why I'm not I can't handle bombing with you two.
Your ego could not handle stand-up.
No, I'm much happier doing it this way because, like I said, I'm bombing with you two, and it's like, all right, I got to get him back, and I got there eventually, but in front of an entire audience full of people who aren't my friends or on my podcast, where I could just hang up on them. Ooh, that's scary. All right, so here's the money. Fantastic Beast on a production budget of $200 million. As of this recording, has made $258 million worldwide. It was obviously the number one movie of the weekend. Obviously. Last week it was The Grinch. The week before that was Bohemian Rhapsody. So there hasn't been a movie yet that's managed to make it to 2 weeks since Halloween. Number one was Fantastic Beasts. Number two was The Grinch. Number three was Bohemian Rhapsody. Instant Family, the Robert Winfree's new favorite movie with Mark Wahlberg, debuted at number 4.
Huh? Mark Wahlberg has a movie?
He does. It's a schmaltzy movie where he takes in foster children. Widows debuted at number 5. The Nutcracker and the What the Fuck fell from 4 to 6. Seriously, I don't know anyone that's enjoyed that movie except maybe my daughter.
I don't know anyone who's seen it.
I know one person who's seen it who reviewed it for her website, and even she admitted she was like, I did not take enough Quaaludes to get through this.
Look, people, Disney, you do a lot of stuff right, but for the love of all that's holy, look at what happened when I can't remember what studio it was, but with that They're like Oz prequel with Mila Kunis and James Franco.
That was Warner Brothers.
Okay, here's my point. Look at that movie. If your movie has anything approaching a similar aesthetic, a similar cast of actors, and even a loosely similar plot structure, don't do it. It's a bad idea. I can save you so much time and energy right now.
And stop turning your actresses into romaine lettuce.
Oh my God, I knew it! I freaking knew it! I was waiting for that!
It's a different movie.
Same
Although,
principle.
in fairness, that same criteria would have saved you that movie if you'd followed it. I was just trying to knock on James Franco.
We're not doing a year in review, but if we did, the picture of it would be Reese Witherspoon
It would
turning
be a
into
picture
lettuce.
of Reese Witherspoon as romaine lettuce, yes.
Because I can't think of another joke we've done more times this year than that one.
Well,
I
if we come up with a
said that
better
more
one,
than
we'll
the
replace it,
Courtney
but we
Butts
haven't yet.
I got none of what you just said, Alexis. Go ahead.
I said you've done the romaine lettuce joke more than you've done the Corgi Butts joke.
This is true. A Star Is Born fell from 5 to 7. Overlord 3 to 8. The Girl in the Spider's
Boy, did
Web.
that thing tank.
Yeah,
that
it
thing
did.
fell hard.
Fell from 6 to 9, and Burn the Stage, the movie, whatever the fuck that is, debuted at number 10. Rounding out the top 20 is Nobody's Fool, Venom, Boy Erase, Can You Ever Forgive Me, The Hate You Give, A Private War, Halloween, Beautiful Boy, Free Solo, and Smallfoot, or as my wife put it, liberal propaganda. No joke. That's not a joke.
A lot of that
there.
going around. I mean, did you see the trailer for, what was it, Ugly Dolls?
No.
I saw that.
Yeah. Look up the trailer, Mark, and you'll bear in mind we're not reviewing that. We will. I'm very clear about this. That will not go on the schedule. But look up the trailer for that and try not to kill yourself.
Okay, I think I'm aware of what Ugly Dolls is, and I think it's coming. It's not on the schedule, and I went out of my way to make sure it wasn't. But I think I know what you're talking about. In any case, worldwide.
I mean, the whole trailer's Kelly Clarkson singing. It can't be good.
So, I'm not ashamed to admit when I'm wrong about something. You know, we make predictions on the show during the money about how things will do or not do, as the case may be. And for the most part, I think, we usually get it right. We've been doing this a while now, as far as amateurs.
Plus or minus 3 points. We're within the margin of error more often than not.
We are so far off on Venom, it's not even funny.
Boy, are we.
Yeah, Venom has made almost $800 million and has shot past Deadpool at this point. It's the number 6 movie in the world.
This continues to baffle me. I genuinely don't know why anyone sees that movie.
That makes two of us.
I mean, look, I saw it. I know people who saw it and enjoyed it. I've talked with them. I know they exist. A lot of them are reasonable. And when they say they had fun with the movie, I accept that because fun is subjective. And if you had fun with this, Godspeed and party on. I don't know why you'd see it twice, even if you had fun with it. It's not a really rewatchable film. And it keeps making money. And I mean, most of the time, even if I think a movie's terrible, I can see why it either succeeds or fails. I can logic it out. I can make sense of it. This movie baffles me because it's not good. No one really even thinks it's good. Like, even the people who like it aren't saying this is a good movie. They're saying, I enjoyed it, which is fine. That's the correct argument to make. But I just don't get it. This gives me a 404 error when I try to think about it too much. I don't know what I'm missing to connect the points of logic here. But this thing's probably going to make $1 billion.
I just kind of looked and said, geez, was the rebound from Topher Grace really that bad?
Well done. So
the Tom Hardy fangirls are a thing, apparently.
Here's what makes me angry about this. We had a plan, Sony. We here at the Disney Corporation, who I'm speaking for now, had a plan. Buy Fox, finalize that deal, launch Disney Plus, buy Sony. And you're fucking up our plan by being successful, you hack studio.
You know what?
I've said this before, and I think I said this before on your show, Mark. To all the fans who keep complaining that Sony still owns the Spider-Man rights, that we still got it, that Disney and Marvel still got to do that stupid dance with them whenever they want to make the Spider-Man movies. And the fact that we're getting a Morbius, however you pronounce it, movie with Jared goddamn Leto. If you saw Venom, this is your fault.
You are 100% right.
I almost feel like this is one of those comic, like, if this had to be scripted, Sony knows they're going to be bought by Disney, and they're okay with it. Like, everyone at the top of the studio is like, we're going to get a payout. Some of us will transition to other jobs. We're going to get stock options. This is a good thing. All we have to do is not go bankrupt within the next 3 years. So let's keep up the appearance. Let's keep a film schedule going. And so when they released Venom, because they have to do something with the property, they tried to make a bad movie. This is a deliberate attempt to just keep their heads above water until Disney buys them. This piece of crap blows up.
So what you're saying is this is a modern.
This is what comes after the next 3 years.
This is a modern.
They were planning on being bought.
This is a modern retelling of The Producers, is what you're saying. They did. What if we?
This is life imitating farce.
I personally thought this was. Oh, see, this is what Fox wished happened with the Fantastic Four movies.
Something like that.
I'm just looking at the studio market share chart, and Sony is Jesus Christ. Sony is fourth from the top. It's Disney, Universal, which are always at the top. Then Warner Brothers. Hello.
Sony is fourth from the top, based solely on Venom, and 2 months ago were eighth on that list.
Yeah. Their position as the fourth highest grossing studio right now is solely because of Venom, and somewhere out there a little bit because of fucking Hotel Transylvania 3. But yeah, that's it.
I refuse to believe that the Tom Hardy fangirls and the fans who went ape shit about the Carnage tease at the end are the sole reason that this is happening.
I blame the Chinese.
Okay, so
this thing.
Sorry, that light's going on Facebook.
Let me be clear about why. Let me be very clear about why. Okay.
Just randomly blaming Chinese for things.
Because I don't randomly blame the Chinese for things. I am not one of those people.
I just had a flashback to a college class. Dear God.
But Venom's box office breakdown. Because trying to find its breakdown. Give me the breakdown. Because in the United States, this thing needed around $450 million to break even between budget, reshoots, and marketing. Don't know why that defied my brain for a minute, but it did. And domestically, it did $210 million. That's it. That's all it was domestically, which is, bear in mind, $210 million, not a bad take. That's a solid thing. But $210 million domestically was not going to cover the totality of that budget. Then it started opening internationally. And whereas the American audiences all looked at it and kind of went, that's not too bad. I might stream it when it's available. Internationally, the Chinese and the Indians, maybe the Australians, they all gave this thing an extra $560 million. I blame the Chinese for going to see this movie because for some reason, for once in a blue moon, the American audience generally gets it right. And then the international grosses come in, and when it gets past the Chinese censors and the Russian censors, and whatever, and it suddenly opens real big in the Philippines or something like that. This is on you people. So I'm blaming the Chinese for this.
So
wasn't that the same argument we made about Avatar?
Huh. It might be.
So
Avatar.
I was gonna say, it's like, why did they get quiet there? Did I step up?
I was thinking. I had to think about it. Like, wait,
So hang on, I want to read this real quick. So this year, not counting Jumanji, which came out late 2017, but ended up becoming $1 billion box office bonanza for Sony. This year,
Power of the Rock.
their three biggest domestic grossing movies, the three at the top of the chart here for 2018, are Venom, Hotel Transylvania, and Peter fucking Rabbit. Okay.
Oh dear God!
They're on the strength of Venom and two animated children's features. They're the fourth studio behind Disney, Universal, and Warner Brothers.
Just out of curiosity, do you guys know anyone who actually sat through Peter Rabbit?
Took the kids.
No.
I took the kids.
Look, I love the Peter Rabbit stories as a small child. I have vivid memories of making my mom read them to me and memorizing them, so I knew if she skipped pages.
Same.
I would absolutely never see this. Wasn't James Corden the lead voice?
Yes.
James Corden has become the go-to voice actor. How many movies has he been? He was in Smallfoot. He was in the Emoji Movie. It's like, how many movies is he going to do a voice in, for crying out loud?
It's part of the contract gig for the Late Late Show that he hosts, which one of the reasons I can't stand him, because he took over for Craig Ferguson, who was the last approachably decent talk show host on late night American television. And when he retired, I just threw up my hands with the whole thing.
So, getting back to how Fantastic Beasts is going to do, here's the problem. It's got a lot of competition this weekend with a lot of the same people who would otherwise go see a Harry Potter movie. You've got Ralph Breaks the Internet, so that's Disney fans for you. Initially Wreck-It Ralph did extremely well in the theaters. It's got, it by itself has a huge fan base, shares a lot of those fans with Harry Potter. So therein lies some competition. Nobody except me and Robert's going to see Robin Hood this weekend. It's fucking terrible. And whatever's left...
I keep petitioning you to... Look, you have the... Mark.
Sir.
You have a choice. Right now, as we sit here on this show. You can choose not to support this. You can make a good choice, Mark. You can choose not to suffer. You can choose not to make your fellow human beings suffer. You can choose not to even in small ways contribute to this film's existence. You can choose a better path, Mark. Make the better choice.
In the words of Jay Sherman, if the movie sucks, just don't go!
Ah, my children, here's the problem. This movie has now gotten so bad, it's crossed into Fantastic Four territory with me, where I have to see how bad it is. This is a car wreck that I can't take my eyes away from.
For the record about Avatar, it made $760 million domestic and $2.027 billion worldwide. So sure, we can blame the international audiences for that as well.
There you go.
So yeah,
I mean, bear in mind, even on just $700 million worldwide domestic, it would have gotten sequels. But
so yeah, Robin Hood's going to happen. I have to see how bad this thing is. We have to talk about it.
Look, I'm not saying you don't have to see how bad the movie is. If that's what you want to do with your 2 hours, fine.
You do that.
But I have suffered,
my little
Mark.
sister to see Wreck-It Ralph too.
Oh, we'll be seeing that as well. Remember, I got kids. I'll be seeing that as well.
I'm not seeing that.
It looks good.
All right, so
I refuse to see Wreck-It Ralph too.
I mean, Creed.
Wait,
and
is
Robin...
that on the schedule or not?
No.
That's aside. I can't remember if you put it on the schedule.
It's off the schedule. There's no room.
Thing.
There's no room for it anymore. I had to get rid of it. Once Robin Hood moved to the same weekend as Creed 2, we were done. So that being said, Ralph Breaks the Internet takes a bite out of Fantastic Beasts, but the other two don't bother. Though the three of them together, well, not so much Robin Hood, Creed 2 and Ralph Breaks the Internet are going to split a lot of the movie-going audience this weekend. The following weekend is The Possession of Hannah Grace. It's a horror movie. If you're a horror person, people will show up to the theaters, but that's not biting into Fantastic Beasts at all. And then there's nothing the week of December 7th. So that's got an opportunity to continue to make a little bit of money. And then we get to the 14th, and by this point, whatever hope this thing has of making any money goes in the crapper. You've got Mortal Engines from Universal and Peter Jackson, and you've got Spider-Man Into the Spider-Verse. So again, your kids and families will be well spoken for here. There'll be nobody left to go see, Fantastic Beasts. That's being followed up by Once Upon a Deadpool, which is your PG-13 Deadpool 2. And then
that is such a stupid idea.
And then
they're just gonna you're just cutting out 50% of the movie.
Yeah,
I don't understand why they didn't put that on TV as a Christmas special. You would think that ABC would be all over that.
Well, here's the thing.
Because it's a Fox property.
Here's the thing.
Right. Okay, well, you think Fox would be all over that.
No. Seth MacFarlane has veto power and doesn't want his crude humor to be shown up by Ryan Reynolds doing cruder humor.
The other thing is, it's as you put it, one of these previous weeks, they're just releasing the movie again with some scenes featuring Fred Savage. It's all gravy at this point, so, if one person goes to see it, they've made their money back.
They've already made their money on that movie. Yeah, they're this is just corporate gluttony and greed. Hence my desire not to see it. I didn't want to see it to begin with. I don't care for those movies.
And then the 21st. God, between Warner Brothers, Paramount, and Universal, what a sissy slap like this is going to be. Aquaman, Bumblebee, something called Second Act, which is not included in that initial list, and Welcome to Marwen, which looks like it's going to be an Oscar contender for Steve Carell. Shortly there, right before that is Mary Poppins Returns. So by the time we get to a month from now, nobody will have remembered what the hell Fantastic Beasts is or be going to see it. So there we are. I figure my guesstimate is it hits $500 million and then just dies on the vine.
Pending it more international returns, because apparently the international. Because they gave Venom life.
I'm sorry, it'll get to $1 billion because China.
Look. I did not say that Venom's going to get to $1 billion just because of China. A lot of it's because of China, not all of it. A lot, but again, a lot. Somewhere in the neighborhood of 30%, probably a disproportionate amount, if I had to guess, but not in total. Plenty of people in the States saw this thing as well.
All right, folks, I have questions for you. Questions that need answering.
Are you ready? No! I said, are you ready?
No, God! No, God, please, no! 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 No!
David Levelsley of GQ magazine from the UK. Nothing seems to matter, and yet everyone tells us how much is at stake.
That actually seems kind of fair.
I actually think that's one of the best reviews I've heard so far.
As far as the criticism of this movie goes, there is a genuine lack of appropriate understanding of the stakes involved for all parties. Do we just not want Grindelwald to speak publicly? Is that it? We just can't let that man near a soapbox?
Matt Oakes of Silver Screen Riot. This dreary snooze fest puckers up to give the once-beloved franchise the Dementor's kiss.
Ow.
I'm not saying... You know what? Again, for all the knocks on this movie, I don't think it's dreary. I think that's a bit of an overreach in terms of criticism. There's light and laughter to be had in this film. There's some funny moments. When Jacob stands in the middle of the streets of London after Queenie disapparates and it starts raining on him, he looks up at the heavens, just raises his hands like, why and of course.
Jennifer Heaton of Alternative... Let's just move on. Jennifer Heaton of Alternative Lens. This movie is the cinematic equivalent to reading Rowley's tiresome retcon tweets, trite, labored, unnecessary, and sometimes even offensive. Get her, Alexis.
Offensive? I Yeah, sorry. It's like, that's actually I'm kind of disarmed here. I'm like, offensive? I am grasping at straws to figure out where that even comes from. Is she part of that percentage that complained that Dumbledore wasn't made gay enough for the movie?
Is that a thing?
No,
Yes.
it is.
That was a thing.
Yeah, there were people who were throwing a fit because, again, Dumbledore is an icon for the LGBT movement. And rightfully so, no complaints. But they were arguing that it wasn't made a huge part of the script. Again, there's that line, we were more than brothers. But if you didn't know that Dumbledore was gay and in love with him, you could just assume that they were like that much closer. You could read it one way or another. And there were a lot of people who were saying, he's a gay icon. You need to show off that he's gay. And a lot of people saying, unless it's like actually a major part of the storyline and the plot, that would probably just bring the pacing to an absolute halt and be kind of pointless and feel pretty shoehorned in. And you know what? I'm actually fine with the fact that they didn't bring it up. Again, the whole closer than brothers thing, I assumed was a hint at it. But I did not feel that this movie would have been better from, I don't know, a scene of Jude Law and Johnny Depp kissing.
This really annoys me because there are millions of gay people around the world. And if you just put them, on a stage with no context and said gay or not gay, most of them you couldn't tell. And that's what that's what irritates me. It's like, they're just people. People being people, living lives, trying to find love and not get killed. Why is there this belief that if you're anything but a white straight male, you have to be so far whatever it is that thing is? Like, if it's gay, he has to be like Stewie Griffin gay, big hat, flamboyant, just ridiculous. It's like he's gay in the movie. How about that's enough? Or you know what I mean?
No, this is the same people with the hashtag give Elsa a girlfriend.
Oh.
Which I'm fine with.
Which
hang
such
on,
a stupid thing.
I'm fine with if it adds to the story. Gay people are a thing; they do exist, and I'm fine with them being in movies. But again, why does everything have to be to the nth degree? Is my point.
I mean, guys, if that's what you're after, there is the Bohemian Rhapsody movie out.
That was.
You got Freddie Mercury right there.
All right, moving on. Cameron Frew of Frew Film, I don't know what that is, Razzle Dazzle doesn't save this problematic foray into the pre-Potter world of witchcraft and wizardry.
You see, I just finished watching She-Ra, so I can't hear Razzle Dazzle and not think of a certain scene from that show.
I have not seen the new She-Ra. So I have no context for that other than, really, you went to Razzle Dazzle? Like that was you sat down, you wrote that out, you decided it was good. That's all I got. Like, really?
Dan Merle of Screen Junkies, this asshole. Ironically, for a film series that's about magic, this lost all sense of magic and whimsy.
I'm on record as saying life's better without whimsy. That's all I'm saying.
I thought that this movie did still have some whimsy. For what it's worth, I will add one of the parts that I did greatly enjoy was seeing Nicholas Flamel and that little hint with the Philosopher's Stone in his cupboard. I thought that was really cool.
Yeah, again, it's a misread. The fact that complaining that it's not omnipresent doesn't mean that the fact that it's not omnipresent doesn't mean it's completely absent. This dials it back, but it's also, in theory, dealing with more somber subject material, so it shouldn't be as lighthearted. Almost like they're altering the tone of the movie to fit the material. Who'd have thought?
All right, Alexis, this one's for you. Rendy Jones of Rendy Reviews. You want us to sit in for 3 more of these? You must be ridiculous.
Yeah, that is one hell of a lame joke. Again, I do agree they are really going to have to step up their game and give us a little bit more substance for the third movie. And frankly, that person needs to have their Harry Potter fan club card taken away from them because no one uses that spell like that. That's a joke.
Yeah, there's a reason you're self-employed. It's because you write like that.
There you go.
Raphael Montemayor, a flickering myth. Remember when Jude Law was cast as Dumbledore and we all thought it would pay off in this film? Well, think again. This is not much more than table setting and the boring kind at that.
That's about right.
I'll admit, I actually thought Jude Law as Dumbledore was quite good. Actually, it's kind of funny. The only thing that someone pointed out online is that this storyline takes place 10 years before Dumbledore meets Tom Riddle for the first time. And as we saw in the flashback of Half-Blood Prince, he already looked like Michael Gambon. So we're kind of looking and going, wow, those 10 years are going to be hell on you, aren't they, Albus?
Something about that duel with Grindelwald is going to turn him into a much older man.
I guess that's the only way to really look at it. Well, the only
look, the Master Wand has access to time magic. I don't know.
Actually, I hate to say, the only complaint I ever made about Dumbledore was that in the books they established that Dumbledore is not good at dressing in Muggle clothing. When in the Half-Blood Prince, when he goes to get Tom, Harry looks at him. He's wearing this like garish suit or whatever, and even Harry's
purple.
like,
it was like a purple zoot suit or something.
Yeah, and even Harry's like, yeah, nice suit, sir. And there was this, and even Dumbledore's like, yeah, ha ha, funny. And that scene in the trailer when Dumbledore's standing there in that gray suit, I'm like, okay, Jude Law in that gray suit, undeniably sexy. I'm impressed. Dumbledore is not supposed to have that kind of sense of style.
Hannah Woodhead of Little White Lies.
Either Stringer Bell, but Idris Elba.
So, period. Tired, period. Of, period. Franchises, period.
Wow. You must be tired of life. I mean, bear in mind, I empathize completely, but quit bringing your franchise fatigue into these movies. That's not a complaint about the film. Saying I'm sick of film franchises only establishes that we have to take everything else you say with that much salt because you're viewing it through that perspective. There's plenty to complain about this film. You don't need to turn it into some kind of treatise on, boy, I hate all of these interconnected film franchises. Whatever happened to standalone films, and boy, do I miss the 70s, even though I wouldn't actually have the patience for one of those movies if it were made today.
See, I actually can understand what they're saying on the grounds that, like I said before, this feels like a film that was done to set up an upcoming movie, and that is a serious problem with franchises. Best example of this was that horrendous Mummy reboot with Tom Cruise.
Oh,
that was let's face it, all that movie cared about was setting up the Dark Universe.
And it failed, thankfully.
Oh, God, no kidding. And while Crimes of Grindelwald is nowhere near as bad as that film, like not even close, it does suffer from kind of the similar problems of we're here to make sure that this is established for the upcoming movies.
Oh, what was it? Oh, Peter Pan. Remember a couple of years ago, Mark, that Peter Pan reboot? That
Here we are now. Entertain us.
I don't care how
we
much.
Actually said it felt like in so much of the writing notes, their response was, "We'll fix it in the sequel." Hugh Jackman deserved better than that movie.
Hilary A. White of Sunday Independent Ireland. This is a dour, swollen, and worst of all, boring slog that just feels like any other crumby post-Lord of the Rings sorcery epic that values franchise building above closing narrative circles.
There's some truth in there, but look, to anyone complaining that this movie is a slog, and I'm not saying it isn't, to be clear about this. I absolutely have to be clear. This is a matter of my perspective. But to people saying this is a slog, I would invite you on any given Saturday night to sit down at 4:30 my time, so 6:30 Eastern, and watch the 6.5-hour UFC broadcast. Believe me, buddy, I know from Slog. You do not.
Two more, and the very last one is I'm gonna warn you ahead of time, is our Trumpiest review that we've gotten lately.
One of these.
Oh, Lord.
You failed political blogger.
So, but first, before we get there, Mark Ellis of Schmoes Know, these fucking people. I don't know what I saw. I didn't have the Rosetta Stone to understand this movie. Ha ha.
I mean, in fairness, Mark, wasn't that kind of what you said after this movie?
Sadly, yes. All right.
I would say I did argue that a handful of the characters, they really needed to enunciate their lines better or lose an accent or get subtitles or something.
All right, our last review of the night. Are you guys ready for this? And this equally doubles as our Get 'em Winfree and our most Trumpiest review of this movie to date. You guys strapped in? You ready?
No, you're setting this up for too high a bar, Mark. When it comes after you read this review and I just kind of go, meh, you're going to have disappointed a lot of people.
I hope so.
Just like the damn Fuse.
Speaking of Fuse, Robert Koger of Flickering Myth. Make wizarding great again.
What?
Okay.
See, I know my Winfree. Get him, Winfree.
Okay.
This fucking guy.
This guy. Listen, buddy. I'm not even going to touch the fact that, again, you're a failed political blogger. You graduated with a degree in, the popular joke is lesbian dance theory, and no one will pay to watch you theorize about lesbian dance. So now you're reviewing film because college managed to teach you some semblance of stringing together sentences. But your true passion lies in, again, lesbian dance, and now, because it's popular, bashing on the various political structures and political parties that you disagree with. Rather than actually talk about the movie, rather than actually do what in theory you are being paid to do, you decide that I'm going to foist my political view into this thing, which is utterly unnecessary, a complete turnoff, and more importantly, let me go just one step further in the process of getting your opinion published and out there in the world. You thought it was a good idea to write that. You shouldn't have. Shame on you. Then, whoever published this decided that I know that clickbait as a term has a bunch of negative connotations when it's a weird thing because in reality the whole point of putting out a title like that is to get people to click on it. By definition, it exists as clickbait anyway. But when people talk about clickbait as a bad thing, this is Exhibit A. You have now surpassed so many stupid, negatively referenced clickbaity titles that I can't think of a worse one than your snippet for your review of this movie, apropos of nothing, simply designed to dredge up traffic to a mediocre website to read your hackneyed review. You're just trying to troll people with that, and shame on you for doing it. Critics as a lot, and I have to lump myself into this given what I do here essentially every week. We're something of a dour lot, sure. There's, again, one of my favorite lines about criticism comes from the Pixar movie Ratatouille, that even the most menial, essentially useless creation of a human is worth infinitely more than the critic's words denouncing it as inane and useless. And we all kind of know this on some fundamental level. You are just trying to troll people, when what you're doing is, in fact, and again, I have to include myself in this, in many respects, a fundamentally worthless service. You, sir, devoted too much of your time to what you did, thought yourself too clever, and now wasted a lot of people's time clicking on it, just to leave angry comments. All you did was drive clicks. You didn't even, I would bet you money, you didn't even get people to read what you wrote, which is what should be the substance of what you're doing. Instead, you went into shameless self-promotion for nothing but clickbait. You should be ashamed of yourself, and congratulations, Mark. You've now made me waste time denouncing this jackass.
You're welcome. And with that, I think we've beaten this horse to death. So, with that said, Alexis Hejna, tell them all about your company and where they can find you, and go ahead, promote yourself.
Refresh my memory. When is this airing?
Immediately.
This isn't source material.
We don't edit.
Yeah, I don't edit shit. I ain't got that kind of time.
Okay. I do love that I could hear Alexa in the background.
Every time.
All right. Yes, my company, Honeysuckle Rose Creations, the intersection of geek and chic, makers of handmade jewelry, upcycled and repurposed from classic game pieces. Right now, we're prepping for our big Black Friday, Cyber Monday sale. Both our Etsy and Handmade at Amazon stores are going to be 20% off. And then coming in December, really excited, we are doing our first ever charity online raffle. We've got a bunch of limited edition and never been sold before items that are going up. Profits are going to go to Children's Mercy.
Question, do you have any Spider-Girl stuff? Spider-Gwen?
Yes, actually, I do.
Okay, I might buy some Spider-Gwen stuff off of you for my daughter for Christmas.
We actually, two of our items, we have a bobby pin set that has Spider-Man and Spider-Gwen symbols on it, and we also just unveiled our new Spider-Verse hair barrette that has Spider-Man, Spider-Man 2099, Silk, Miles Morales, Spider-Man Noir, and Spider-Gwen on it.
Oh, cool. All right, I'll have to go check out your website. And your website is?
Again, honeysucklerosecreations.com, but you can also find us on Etsy, Handmade at Amazon. We're also active on Facebook, Twitter, and Instagram. Again, that's Honeysuckle Rose Creations.
And if you liked Alexis on this show, you'll be able to hear her again, short order. She will be on, let's see, where the frick is it? She will be joining me to review She-Ra, which just dropped on Netflix, and that will be someday. What the hell? What?
I did finish the series. I greatly enjoyed it, and I'm taking polls on which character is going to be the most popular cosplay. Right now, the votes online are going between either Glimmer or a duo combo of Scorpia and Catra in their prom getup.
Okay, I found the date. Finally, we will be reviewing on for TV Party Tonight She-Ra, which just dropped on Netflix on January 3rd. Start the new year off right with a little bit of She-Ra. And as far as your next appearance on source material, I don't think that's happening until February. No, you're on. I take that back. You'll be on our December 17th show. That's when it's airing. That's the same week that I'll have a bunch of people on for Elseworlds. Preceding that is source material Batwoman Elegy, which was a run in Detective Comics a couple of years ago featuring Batwoman, who's now being played by Ruby Rose. So, that more Alexis here on the Radulich Broadcasting Network.
Side note, I need you to send me the link for the digital comics. I tried ordering them from my comic shop, and they said they're out of print.
Yep, I will give you the website and the in the individual issues. Sure. All right. In the meantime, in between time, here are all the plugs that's fit to print. Tomorrow, it's our homecoming show, our night before Thanksgiving turkey show. This year's turkey nomination is Hooverstank. Push pull. That's Hooverstank. And if you can't get enough of that Metal Hammer of Doom, there'll be a second show on Thanksgiving Day. It'll just be Jesse Starcher and Robert Cooper. They'll be reviewing the new Throssenblatt, God bless me. So go ahead and check that out. Next week, it's all Robin Hood all the time, no matter what Robert Winfree says. We start off with Hawkeye, My Life as a Weapon by Matt Fraction. We will, in fact, review the car wreck that is Robin Hood. The Metal Hammer of Doom will be reviewing...
I make no promises.
Metal Hammer of Doom POD Circles. And then finally, on Thursday the 29th, myself and Sean Comer will put Robin Hood, Prince of Thieves, on trial. Finally, December 1st is the big heavyweight boxing showdown on pay-per-view between Deontay Wilder and Fat Tyson Fury. we will be providing alternative commentary. Why listen to the Bozos on Short Time when you can listen to the Bozos right here on the Radulich Broadcasting Network? And speaking of Bozos, Robert Winfree, take me home.
Yeah, tune in next week if I don't kill myself after watching Robin Hood.
Place your bets to see if he makes the show, ladies and gentlemen.
What are the odds?
100 to 1.
What odds are you giving on that?
I'm not putting any money down on this.
I'm asking Mark for odds. What odds are you giving?
100 to 1. 100 to 1.
All right. Wait. Did I actually kill myself, or that I don't make it to the show? I want specificity here.
Will you please just do your plugs? I'm missing the Family
No,
Guy
I want to
here.
see if I can make a bet on this.
Oh my God. What do you need from me?
I need specific odds and how best to exploit them, because I might bet on myself here.
We'll talk about it later. Just do your plugs.
All right, I've killed Mark's brain. Much like Robin Hood will do to me next week around the same time. I am not making any promises about my participation on that podcast. There's a pretty decent chance I'm going to show up, say, Mark, I refuse to see it. You get to talk about it, and I'm just going to be here to make fun of him for sitting through it.
Terrific.
Which would be a first, but would be so sweet for me. That would just be the best thing in the world. Because the number of times that I have suffered through a movie, only for Mark to bow out at the last minute.
It's not my fault. There was a hurricane.
No. I didn't suffer through it. I liked it. You bailed on King Arthur.
It's not my fault. I had cancer.
I'm pretty sure it's your fault.
I'm sorry, Mark.
You are ridiculous.
Look, the point being, when I bow out of a movie, I give you plenty of advance notice, and you line up at least 2 to 3 other people who are desperate to be on the show. God only knows why. Whereas, when you do it, it's the day before and you say, hey, I can't, I'm moving. Hey, I can't, my wife's in labor. Hey, I can't, I have cancer. Hey, I can't, there's a hurricane. And I'm stuck here by myself, talking to myself for a little over an hour, and just lamenting the fact that I suffered through a terrible movie while you got to get chemo. I would rather have had chemo.
Somebody please put this light on Facebook.
That said, again, we'll see whether or not I make it through Robin Hood next week. But if I do, tune in. I'll be here to yell at Mark for making me watch this. If the movie hasn't beaten him up enough, I will beat him up for this. Last Sunday, Jeff Harris and I reviewed UFC Fight Night 140, which was a 6-hour slog, give or take. Decent top 2 fights, the rest of it not so much. This Sunday we will be, I think I looked this up, we will be reviewing Fight Night 141, which starts at 6 p.m. Eastern Standard Time. Because it's in China. I'm blaming the Chinese again, damn it. Because that's 4:30 in the morning my time. That's the worst starting time. I can't even just stay up all night until 4:30. I'm going to have to sleep for a few hours and wake up at 3.
Can we just call the secondary title of this podcast, Winfree Hates the Chinese?
I do not hate the Chinese, okay? There's a significant difference between blaming them for things that are their fault and abject hatred. I do not hate the Chinese. I'm blaming them for living on the other side of the country. The other side of the world, not the country. They live on the other side of the globe. Because the world is flat.
You are coming up the seams there, bud.
I am. Oh, God. Again, just thinking of getting up at 4:30 in the morning to cover a card headlined by Francis Ngannou versus Curtis Blades 2.
Isn't the most recent theory that the world isn't flat, it's donut-shaped?
Probably, because people are stupid.
You know, if he hadn't said anything, I was just going to yell out Avatar.
There's some moron out there there's probably some moron out there who thinks that the Halo, like, we live on a Halo from the video game series. Like, people are stupid. So we'll be reviewing my suffering over the course of Fight Night 141, and we'll have a double preview. We'll be previewing the Ultimate Fighter 28 finale, because that show just won't die. Damn it to hell. Fortunately, I don't cover it on a weekly basis. Poor Larry Zonka does. But we'll previewing that card. It's not a good card. Man, it's really not a good card. And all be Fight Night 142 when it returns to Australia. Why are there 2 fight nights in a row with both of the top fights are heavyweights? What do you do to me? I blame you for this.
I'm not Chinese.
That's because this isn't their fault. This is your fault.
I like how I started slow, but I'm slaying them in the end. Yes.
Look, the punchier we get, the funnier you get. Your material hasn't actually improved.
This is true.
I'm pushing that we make Robert's new joke about the Chinese the way you guys made my joke about the corgi butts.
Look, my luck, that will turn into a meme. I'm just blaming the Chinese because
I'm gonna change the opening theme to this podcast from the Great Movie Ride to "I Like Chinese" by Monty Python.
Yay!
I like Chinese. They only come up to your knees.
I haven't actually seen that bit, so the gag would be lost on me. Anyway, the point being, Fight Night 142 is headlined by Junior Dos Santos and Tai Tuivasa, with the co-main event of the co-main event. I seem to recall is Mark Hunt's retirement fight as he takes on Justin Willis. So a supersized edition of the 411 Ground and Pound radio show on Sunday. A double preview and a review of the Chinese card. It's not racist. It's literally being held in China. They're in Beijing for this one. Don't yell at me about that. So you can listen to that. This early Saturday morning, I will have coverage of UFC Fight Night 141 in the MMA zone of 411mania.com. So stop by, say hello. I appreciate it. I'm going to need all the help I can get through this one. And then again next week for Taron Egerton's version of Robin Hood. Not actually Robin Hood, but dang it, I had an aesthetic for this movie and I can't remember what it was. I had an aesthetic joke about it.
The
it'll come back to me.
The Last Ninja?
No. Again, it's not about the substance, it's about the way the movie just looks. It'll come back.
Is this a Guy Ritchie film?
It's in that Guy Ritchie style. I don't know if he's actually directing it.
Yeah.
We just at the apex. This is like a cross between crappy Guy Ritchie and sepia tones.
So crappy Guy Ritchie and Michael Bay?
I'm going to go with Zack.
Yeah, Zack Snyder would have been more appropriate. That's
Fair
good.
enough.
Guy Ritchie and Zack Snyder.
See, when I think Zack Snyder, I don't think sepia tones. I think get the editor's finger off the slow-mo and the zoom buttons.
You apparently haven't seen.
Nice.
You haven't seen Man of Steel in a while, then.
No, I haven't.
And with that,
but yeah, I think that's all. I think that's all the places you can find me in the upcoming weeks. Hope everyone has a decent Thanksgiving. Don't do anything stupid. I know you're thinking about it. Don't do it.
what he means by that is don't go see Robin Hood. And for
look, seeing Robin Hood falls under the category of doing something stupid.
So with that said, once again, thank you to Alexis Hejna, Robert Winfree. Try not to kill yourself this week.
I make no promises.
This has been the... What are we again? This has been the Damn You Hollywood. Be well, be safe.
It's that late, guys.
Be well. I don't remember what show I'm on. Be well, be safe, and behave.